The story begins with Kobayashi Suda, an ordinary first-year high school student, found anywhere. Recently, however, his attention has been entirely captivated by the strange girl sitting next to him in class, Mino. Her appearance alone is enough to draw attention, prompting Kobayashi to ask his friend if he also thinks there is something odd about her. The friend scolds him, stating it is rude to call a girl strange. Kobayashi quickly shuts his mouth, thinking he might be too concerned, though he insists he wasn't referring to her looks. During lunch break, the friend takes out a fried prawn, ready to eat. Kobayashi, however, cannot take his eyes off Mino, who piles so much grass onto her desk that it creates a small mountain. He watches in shock as she shoves grass into her mouth and begins pouring egg over the pile of greens, seemingly trying to change the taste with seasoning. Noticing his fixation, the friend teases Kobayashi, suggesting that he seems to like Mino. Flustered, our lad turns to look at her just as their eyes meet. He shouts that it is not like that at all. He is simply baffled by the salad she calls lunch. The friend dismissively comments about Mino potentially eating the schoolyard's grass before warning Kobayashi not to get in the way of his precious fried prawn moment. Silenced, Kobayashi begins to question himself, wondering if he actually does like her. Suddenly, Mino pulls out half a head of iceberg lettuce and starts biting into it directly. Shocked by the sight, Kobayashi screams Nakajima's name, causing his friend to nearly drop the fried prawn in surprise. The next day, Kobayashi sits beside Mino, finding himself concerned about her. While he feigns interest in the class subject, his eyes drift, finding himself distracted. Suddenly, a girl named Miyabi approaches Mino, announcing that the pervert next to her is staring. Kobayashi freaks out as Miyabi points directly at him, accusing him of having wandering eyes. He denies it, mentally cursing the delinquent girl for targeting him. Miyabi attempts to poke Mino to get a reaction, but she moves instantly, grabbing her hand with crushing force. Miyabi screams that her hand is going to break and desperately offers to treat Mino to lunch as an apology. Upon hearing the offer, Mino immediately releases her grip. Kobayashi watches the exchange, completely flustered by the sudden violence and quick resolution. Later in the cafeteria, Kobayashi observes Mino and Miyabi eating together, shocked that they are actually conversing. Suddenly, Miyabi shouts, "Are you being serious?" so loudly that Kobayashi's friend drops his noodles in shock, splashing hot broth onto a nearby couple. Unfazed by the chaos, Mino casually reveals that she actually came from another world. Miyabi screams in disbelief again. After school, Kobayashi walks home with his friends, wondering what the earlier yelling was about. Miyabi calls out to him from behind, stating that looking at Mino is completely fine. He thinks she is joking, but she insists on being serious. Confused by the sudden permission, he watches Mino pass by. Later, judo class begins. The school allows students to choose between ball games or track and field, but Kobayashi deliberately chose judo because Mino is there, even as he tells himself it's just concern. Miyabi steps forward and challenges Mino, boasting about her judo experience from elementary school and telling her not to hold back. Kobayashi assumes Miyabi is walking straight into disaster, but to his surprise, she pins Mino to the mat with ease. Laughing, Miyabi says that being big alone won't help in judo. Kobayashi is left confused, wondering if Mino is actually just an ordinary weak girl after all. Suddenly, Sakakihara, the prefectural tournament runner-up, beats an opponent and boasts loudly. Miyabi calls him out, accusing him of only enjoying throwing girls around. Sakakihara gives her an unsettling grin and asks if she wants to back out, then suddenly charges. He throws Miyabi to the mat and mocks her as a delinquent girl. Kobayashi and his friends are furious and prepare to jump in, but Mino steps in front of the bully first. She grabs Sakakihara by the collar and begins dragging him. He laughs, mocking her stance and claiming she won't be able to throw him at all. Silently, Mino looks into his eyes and rips his clothes right off his body. The entire gym is shocked. Sakakihara panics, shouting that tearing off someone's clothes is foul play and that she loses for breaking the rules. Mino looks visibly sad at the accusation. Miyabi walks over, thanking Mino for avenging her but gently confirming that tearing clothes is indeed not allowed. While they talk, Sakakihara quietly sneaks away in shame. The following day at the nearest station, Kobayashi absent-mindedly discovers Mino's secret. She uses the same station as him. Throughout the ride, he glances at her from the window of another carriage, causing his friend to label him a stalker. He denies the accusation but notices that Mino acts like a magnet for children. She appears troubled by the attention, though Kobayashi simply finds her cute. Suddenly, a young girl reaches out toward Mino, whispers something, and runs to her mother demanding milk. Kobayashi nods with a sudden understanding of the situation, though his friend questions if he truly gets it. Kobayashi snaps out of his thoughts just as they exit the train. Outside the station, the friend points out that Mino is now surrounded by even more kids. Kobayashi watches her, wondering why she gets involved with random children so easily. Just then, Mino turns around and spots the three boys watching her. Kobayashi panics, feeling awkward about being caught staring, but then he notices something odd. She is completely drenched. He realizes he has figured out another one of her secrets. When Mino is in turmoil, she sweats an incredible amount. One day during physical education, Kobayashi sits by the water table and suddenly freaks out. He spots Mino wiping her mouth with the hem of her shirt. He turns completely red, unable to handle the sight. Later in class, he's still flustered, stealing awkward glances in her direction while trying to calm himself down. Miyabi approaches his desk, warning him that he is staring too much and drawing unwanted attention. He stammers a denial, claiming he isn't looking a weird way. When she presses him, he panics and blurts out the truth. Hearing this, Miyabi marches over to Mino and loudly announces her misunderstanding. Kobayashi screams, while his friend teases that the voice of his heart is leaking out. Feeling betrayed, he desperately assures Mino that it is a lie. She makes a teasing gesture before quickly dropping the joke. Later, while strolling home, he feels down. One day during class, Kobayashi notices Mino wearing glasses. On another occasion, however, she is holding a fresh apple in her hand instead of wearing eyewear. Kobayashi feels nervous, wondering if holding fruit during a lesson is acceptable as long as she doesn't eat it. Suddenly, he watches her apply immense force, cleanly snapping the apple in half with just her hands. Completely freaked out, he shakes Nakajima, whispering frantically that the apple just split. Nakajima, irritated by the distraction, shouts at him to shut up, asking if he wants to die. Consequently, both of them are sent to stand in the hallway as punishment. Nakajima fumes, complaining that his online reputation will be ruined because of this. Kobayashi apologizes, but insists that snapping an apple with bare hands is insane. Nakajima dismisses it, claiming that while people can't fly, splitting an apple is something 1 in 100 people can do. Kobayashi falls silent, but soon senses someone standing behind them. It is Mino, who has also been punished, likely for the apple incident. Suddenly, she reaches into her pocket and pulls out another apple. Kobayashi watches in anticipation, thinking they are about to witness the feat again. Instead, she takes a massive bite, consuming half the apple in a single mouthful. Kobayashi snaps, shouting to ask if Nakajima saw that. Unimpressed, he adjusts his statistics, admitting that that specific task might be 1 in 50. Later at home, Kobayashi becomes obsessed with the apple. He attempts to bite through half of one, but fails. Then he tries to snap it with both hands, but nothing happens. As his mother scolds him to just eat the fruit, he realizes just how impossible the task truly is. The next day, on the way to school, Kobayashi is yawning with his friends when he suddenly stops behind a wall to peek ahead. Mino is standing on the footpath, looking up at a tree where a cute kitten is stuck. He frantically asks Nakajima if they have a plan, but Nakajima and the other friend dismiss him, claiming they have no idea and will be late. Kobayashi shouts, asking why they are being so cruel to him. Suddenly, they notice Mino climbing onto the wall to reach the tree. Kobayashi shouts in surprise, asking if she should really be doing that. She glares at them and points to the cat. Kobayashi says he understands, but urges her to calm down. Ignoring him, she continues climbing. Nakajima teases Kobayashi, but he shouts in protest but actually starts looking. Nakajima warns that she might become a trespasser since it is a private house and suggests calling the police or ward office instead. Mino whispers that she doesn't know about that. Just then, the kitten stands up, looking hesitant. Mino goes on high alert and jumps from the wall toward the tree branch, grabbing it. Kobayashi chokes on his breath as the branch snaps under her weight, sending her crashing to the ground. The boys rush toward her, fearing the worst, but find that she successfully saved the kitten, which is now sitting safely on top of her. Kobayashi is amazed as she sits up and pets the animal. Effortlessly, she stands up and starts walking away with a smile. From behind, Nakajima puts a hand on Kobayashi's shoulder, questioning why his reaction is so extravagant. At school, Nakajima notices someone carrying a stack of boxes through the corridor. He calls out to Kobayashi, feigning a sudden cold to pass off his day duty. Kobayashi points out that he was fine all day, but Nakajima casually mentions that Mino will be on duty as well. Without a second thought, our lad accepts the task. Inside the classroom, Kobayashi tells Mino that he will handle all the cleaning so she can simply write the journal. She smiles confusingly, suggesting that they can finish faster if they work together. He agrees excitedly, realizing this is their first real conversation. Just as he bends down to grab a duster, the school nurse asks them for help moving heavy cartons to the infirmary. Wanting to appear macho in front of Mino, he tries to lift all the boxes at once, but the load is impossible. The teacher warns him to stop, noting the weight. In the end, Kobayashi struggles to lift even a single box, while Mino easily picks one up and starts walking. The nurse mocks Kobayashi for being the only man there yet failing to lift the load. He wonders what on earth is inside, refusing Mino's offer to switch loads to protect his pride. When they finally reach the infirmary, the nurse orders them to place the boxes on a high shelf. Kobayashi panics, knowing he cannot lift the heavy object that high. Suddenly, Mino steps in, holding the box as lightly as if it were a cloud. She jumps and throws the box onto the shelf with effortless precision, leaving Kobayashi stunned. Later in the corridor, Mino produces a cookie, saying they earned it. Kobayashi tries to decline, feeling she did all the work, but she insists. She takes a bite, eating half the cookie, and extends the rest to him. When he freezes in shock, she abruptly shoves the remainder into his mouth and walks away. Meanwhile, at a park, Nakajima is relaxing with a coffee when he receives a frantic message from Kobayashi, who is desperate to scream about how Mino just fed him. After school, Miyabi invites Mino to get some curry, reminding her that she had wanted to try it for a while. Miyabi offers to treat her as a reward for her hard work during part-time duty. Mino seems confused but doesn't refuse. Suddenly, Kobayashi and another friend pop up from behind, bowing deeply and thanking Miyabi for the meal. She asks where they came from, but agrees to pay. With one condition: those who fail the curry challenge must pay for themselves. The challenge involves eating a dish made with butchalokia ghost peppers. At the restaurant, Miyabi declares that she will cover the bill for anyone who finishes the meal. The boys start, and Kobayashi immediately loses it due to the intense heat. Nakajima, however, remains calm, noting that while it is spicy, he can handle it. Miyabi looks at Mino, who hasn't started yet, and suggests she doesn't have to force herself. However, she decides that since the boys are going through the trouble, she should too. Kobayashi freaks out as Mino takes a bite. The spice hits her instantly, and she begins sweating profusely due to the heat. Miyabi laughs at the reaction, while Kobayashi marvels at how incredible this situation is. Meanwhile, Nakajima finishes his plate effortlessly. Miyabi encourages Mino to stop and order a regular portion, insisting it is impossible to force down. Ignoring the advice, Mino takes another bite. Inspired by her determination, Kobayashi tries his best to continue as well. In the end, only Nakajima and Mino, who is now completely drenched in sweat, succeed in finishing the challenge. Kobayashi, with lips fully swollen from the heat, fails miserably and ends up having to borrow money from Nakajima to pay for his meal. The next day, he is clearly still unwell. Miyabi notes that he looks awful, while Nakajima remarks that there is nothing they can do about it since he has been like this for 3 days. Kobayashi notices that Mino has also been absent from school. When the teacher asks for a volunteer to deliver handouts to her, Miyabi immediately raises her hand, volunteering Kobayashi by claiming he lives closest to her house. He freaks out, but eventually heads to Mino's house. Standing outside, he blushes, realizing he is actually at her place. He rings the bell, and a little boy opens the door, demanding to know what business he has there. Kobayashi nervously explains he is here for the boy's big sister. The boy asks, "Which one?" He clarifies it is the one absent today. The boy slams the door in his face, only to open it again moments later and order him to wait inside. Kobayashi enters, noticing a sweet smell in the air that is very different from his own home. As he wonders if the boy was her brother, he suddenly feels a presence right beside him. It is Mino, sitting intimately close. Mistaking him for Akira-kun, she hands him money and asks him to buy lettuce and CC lemon, telling him to keep the change. However, when she turns to fix her glasses and actually looks at him, she panics. His brother returns, noting that they seem to get along. Mino shouts in surprise, realizing it is Kobayashi, and he quickly hands her the handouts. Later at home, he remains completely silent during dinner, while taking a bath, and even in bed. Lying down, the reality hits him. The next day, Kobayashi is fully flustered when looking at Mino, but to his surprise, she acts just the same as always. In summer, the physical education class offers students a choice. Almost all the boys choose swimming, whereas the girls typically pick track and field. Inside the classroom, Kobayashi is deep in thought when Nakajima speaks up, noting that while other girls can do whatever they want, the real question is what Mino is going to do. Kobayashi snaps at him, telling him to stop pretending to be his inner thoughts. However, Mino speaks up, stating that she genuinely likes water and prefers the swimming option. Everyone turns to look at her in surprise. Later at the pool, only Mino and Miyabi appear in swimsuits. Miyabi freaks out, complaining that the guys are looking at Mino and suggesting it isn't too late to switch to track and field. Mino, unbothered, simply moves forward. Kobayashi thinks that he never really noticed it in middle school, but she looks incredibly good in a school swimsuit. Miyabi catches him flustering and shouts, calling him a pervert. He denies it, but just then, Mino interrupts the conversation by jumping into the pool, landing flat on her belly. Kobayashi waits for her to surface, but she doesn't come up. Panicking, he shouts that she is not floating, but drowning. Nakajima suggests she might just be diving, telling Kobayashi he sounds like her parent. When she still doesn't appear, he can't wait any longer and jumps in after her. Swimming deep, he finds Mino lying flat on the pool floor. He rushes to rescue her, but as he gets closer, he sees her eyes are wide open. He is confused as to why she sank like a stone and isn't floating at all. Suddenly, he realizes he is running out of air. He finds himself lying on the bottom of the pool, looking up, thinking the view is remarkable. Mino reaches out to him and tries to say something, but everything fades to black. Later, Kobayashi sits by the poolside, utterly humiliated by his shameful display. Nakajima walks by, teasing him that it wasn't all bad since he got artificial respiration. Kobayashi shakes his hand frantically, shouting at Nakajima to stop, but the poor lad doesn't know the truth. On the day of the school trekking outing, he asks Nakajima if it won't be lonely for just the three guys to eat lunch together. When Nakajima ignores him, he turns to Miyabi, but she instantly shouts that he is being annoying and obviously just wants to eat with Mino. He tries to deny it, but she dismisses his excuses. Finally, lunchtime arrives, and the group sits together. Kobayashi, his two friends, Miyabi and Mino. Miyabi teases Kobayashi, noting how nice this arrangement is for him. She then critiques the boys' lunches, pointing out that Kikuchi's box is full of nothing but meat, while Nakajima only brought a drink. Kobayashi defends them, claiming guys don't care about adding flair to their meals. Miyabi then notices Mino's lunch, which appears to be just salad. Kobayashi quickly defends her, arguing that Mino's style emphasizes simplicity and refinement. He points out a second box, confident it contains juicy, cute rice balls. However, when Mino opens it, the box reveals only broccoli and tomatoes. Miyabi looks done, but he insists it is a great lunch because it contains things she likes. When he opens his own lunchbox, however, he reveals food arranged with cute faces. Miyabi gushes about how cute it is that his mom prepared it, while Kobayashi grumbles that he asked her to make it normal. As he picks up a veggie ghost, he notices Mino staring at it intently. Blushing, he offers it to her. Instead of taking it with her hand, she leans in and takes a bite directly from his chopsticks. Kobayashi is paralyzed with joy, thinking the chopsticks have now become precious. Suddenly, Nakajima pushes Kikuchi, who falls right onto Kobayashi, causing him to drop the sacred chopsticks into the dirt. Kobayashi cries out in despair, mourning the loss. Miyabi taunts him, while he screams at Nakajima. In response, Nakajima simply tosses Kobayashi aside. Just as Kobayashi feels sad, Mino offers him a piece of broccoli with her chopsticks, returning the favor from earlier. He's so happy he almost cries, creating a special memory of the spring trip. Later, Miyabi tells him to hurry and swallow, but he refuses, wanting to savor the broccoli Mino gave him as long as possible. The next day, Mino is given the task of buying soy sauce, so she heads out. Miyabi spots her and excitedly approaches, but Mino doesn't recognize her at all. Miyabi quickly lets her hair down, explaining that she isn't wearing any makeup, asking if the difference is that shocking. Mino shakes her head no. Smiling, Miyabi suggests they head inside the nearby library. Inside, they drink canned beverages while Miyabi works on her homework. Mino helps her solve a math problem effortlessly. Miyabi excitedly praises her skills, asking her to solve more. Mino continues to breeze through the questions, leaving Miyabi amazed by her incredible intelligence. Suddenly, she reaches out and starts petting Miyabi's hair. Although Miyabi enjoys it, she hesitates, asking what is wrong. Unexpectedly, Mino hugs her so tightly that Miyabi wonders what is going on, causing the juice can to fall to the floor. Meanwhile, at home, Kobayashi receives a distress message from Miyabi, simply saying, "Help." When he rushes to the location, he finds Mino completely enveloping Miyabi in a crushing hug, refusing to let go. Kobayashi stares confused, wondering what the hell is happening. Miyabi shouts at him, begging him to please pull them apart. Outside Mino's house, Kobayashi and Miyabi are confused when a voice scolds Mino to wear it properly, and they don't know what's happening. When she emerges sweaty but bundled in a thick sweater, Miyabi immediately understands the situation after being whispered the truth, while Kobayashi remains completely clueless. Later in class, Mino suffers from the heat, but Miyabi forbids her from removing the sweater, worrying about her catching a cold. Kobayashi wonders if Mino is weak to colds, and Miyabi explains that Mino is usually lightly dressed at home. This remark makes Kobayashi imagine what lightly dressed could mean, much to Miyabi's disgust. One day, Mino's appearance is clearly unusual. Her horns are cracked and broken. Both Kobayashi and Miyabi immediately notice the change. Miyabi advises him to leave Mino alone today, sensing the intense mood. However, he ignores the warning and walks straight up to Mino, bidding her a cheerful good morning. Instead of responding, she glares at him before looking down in silence. The cold reaction completely freaks him out. Later, he tries to call out to her on several occasions, but she refuses to respond, making him feel as if he doesn't even exist. After school, he is distraught, whining to Nakajima and Kikuchi that Mino might hate him. However, his friends simply ignore him and keep walking, leaving Kobayashi to crumble into dust from the embarrassment. The following day at school, however, Mino approaches him and greets him normally with a good morning. Kobayashi, he freezes in place. As his friends look on, he feels as though he has seen heaven on earth, so overcome with happiness that he almost cries. The wind is powerful on the way to school. Kobayashi complains about the force of the gale to his friends, who are also struggling against it. Suddenly, he spots Mino and Miyabi approaching from the front. The wind is so fierce that it causes a bit of commotion. As if the wind wasn't enough, heavy rain suddenly begins to pour. The group rushes to stand under a shelter, and Kobayashi groans in frustration. However, his eyes wander toward Mino. Miyabi catches him staring and shouts at him to stop. Little does she know that she's soaked as well. Kobayashi tries to warn her, but Miyabi snaps at him, shouting as if she already assumes the worst of his intentions. The night before the school festival arrives, the entire school is busy with preparations. Kobayashi is hard at work crafting something out of paper. He twists the material and sticks it together, shouting triumphantly that he did it. Nakajima asks what it is, and Kobayashi proudly claims it is a skeleton, though his friend clearly doesn't buy it. Miyabi comments that it looks like complete shit. Kobayashi shouts back that she just doesn't understand art. She picks up the so-called skeleton and asks where the head is. It turns out Mino was in charge of making the head, and when the group sees her creation, it is incredible. Miyabi remarks that Mino is way too into it, and Kobayashi's shabby junk body won't fit such a masterpiece. Kobayashi shouts at her to just put it on anyway. However, when they combine the parts, the result is a total disaster, and even he has to admit it is not good at all. Suddenly, an idea sparks in Mino. She grabs a paintbrush and starts painting the whole thing violently. She works with such intensity that paint splatters onto both Kobayashi and her own face. Miyabi asks if it wasn't grotesque enough yet, but Kobayashi simply notes that at the very least, the skeleton is finally done. Finally, all preparations are finished. On the morning of the festival, Kobayashi is sound asleep on a bench. Mino wakes him up, announcing that it is morning. Nearby, Miyabi is brushing her teeth and asks how much longer he needs to sleep. He wakes up groggily, remarking that it feels like he woke up in heaven. Nakajima, busy handling the backdrop, retorts that it would have been better if he had just died right there. Kobayashi confidently shows off the skeleton art he and Mino worked on, though to everyone else, it looks like trash. Suddenly, he turns around and comes face to face with a horrific dummy head. He screams in terror, only to find Miyabi laughing maniacally. She claims making the prop was worth it just for that reaction. Kobayashi asks the class representative, Miyamoto, what his role is for the day. Before she can answer, his friends appear dressed as Frankenstein and a vampire. Kobayashi bursts out laughing at their new looks. Miyamoto informs him that he will be a zombie. Reluctantly, he takes his costume bag and heads to the changing room, grumbling about how troublesome it is. When he opens the door, however, he freezes in surprise. Inside stands Mino, fully dressed as a mummy. Miyabi immediately shouts at him, declaring that this hour is for girls only. He apologizes and retreats. Later, fully changed into a damaged-looking zombie, he rejoins his friends, admitting that the school festival might actually be enjoyable. At the festival, every class radiates a different vibe. Miyamoto invites students to enter their horror house, but Kobayashi, dressed as a zombie, scares them so effectively that they run away screaming. Needing a break, he takes off his mask. Nearby, some girls pass a set of lockers and hear a rustling voice. They dismiss it as a special effect and walk away. Kobayashi, however, investigates the sound. He struggles with the door but finally pulls it open to reveal Mino trapped inside. She apologizes, explaining that she couldn't open it from the inside. Suddenly, he notices two more students approaching. Before he can react, Mino grabs his hand and pulls him inside the locker to hide. The space is incredibly cramped, and Kobayashi becomes flustered, realizing this is a once-in-a-lifetime miracle, but also feeling panic as he sweats profusely. He mutters an apology, but Mino suddenly whispers something. Overwhelmed by the situation, Kobayashi suffers a massive nosebleed, splattering blood onto her. Panicked, he decides to beat the door down with all his might. Meanwhile, their friends are searching for them just as Kobayashi bursts out of the locker, entangled in Mino's bandages. Seeing the sight, the girls scream, accusing him. Despite the chaotic misunderstanding, the school festival ends on a memorable note for Kobayashi. Standing outside the classroom, Kobayashi stares intently at Mino, questioning his own sanity. He wonders if her horns are merely an illusion that only he can see. Suddenly, a middle school girl named Chiyoko appears beside him, admitting that she is also concerned about that. Kobayashi is shocked that someone else perceives it. Chiyoko, calling him Bean Senpai, explains that she followed Mino here because the anomaly felt so improper, yet no one else seemed to notice. When she suggests touching it to settle the matter, Kobayashi frantically stops her. Later in the cafeteria, Kobayashi eats lunch with Chiyoko, while Mino sits nearby. Chiyoko asks if he wants to make a move first, but he calls her insane. Hearing other girls gossip about the nickname Bean Senpai, he demands that she address him properly as Kobayashi Senpai. Chiyoko refuses, claiming the title Bean suits him perfectly. In retaliation, he snatches a piece of meat from her plate and eats it immediately, causing her to shout in protest. Watching from a distance, Miyabi is confused as to why a middle schooler is hanging out with him. Suddenly, Chiyoko looks toward Mino and remarks that it has disappeared. Kobayashi freaks out, asking what exactly she was looking at. Chiyoko reveals that she was concerned about a stick of Jagariko potato fry that was stuck in Mino's hair earlier. Kobayashi is visibly disappointed to realize they were talking about completely different things. Chiyoko then mentions that there is actually one more thing she is curious about, but she refuses to tell him. One day, the boys walk down the street with intense expressions, acting like Sigma males straight out of a drama manga, while entirely ignoring the girls. Miyabi asks what is up with their faces, but Kobayashi sharply tells her to get lost, claiming their destination is not a place for women. However, he immediately invites Mino to join them. Miyabi, furious at the hypocrisy, tells him to die. They arrive at a ramen shop, leaving Miyabi confused as to why a restaurant would be off-limits to girls. Standing at the ticket machine, Kobayashi points out the serving sizes: large, extra large, and Gigamax. He mocks Miyabi, asking if he should press the button for a small fry, like her, since there is no small option. Provoked, Miyabi angrily selects a large size, while Mino calmly selects the Gigamax. The shop owner questions if they can actually eat all that food. When Mino's bowl arrives, it is a massive mountain of bean sprouts. Kobayashi worries that she won't even be able to reach the noodles, and the owner agrees. However, Mino grabs half the bean sprouts with her chopsticks and shoves them into her mouth in a single bite. Kobayashi and the owner are terrified. Kobayashi warns the old man not to make light of Mino. Next, Mino skewers a kilogram of roasted pork fillets onto one chopstick and devours them instantly. Before long, she finishes the entire bowl. Miyabi watches in disbelief but smugly tells the owner that he still has a lot to learn. The man snaps back, telling Miyabi to shut up and look at her own massive pile of leftovers. The class prepares for the upcoming sports day. The teacher announces that the physical education class will consist of a dry run for coordinated group gymnastics, requiring boys and girls to form pairs. Upon realizing this, the boys freak out with excitement, while the girls are visibly annoyed, calling the idea awful. The teacher orders them to hurry up and split into pairs, threatening to decide for them if they hesitate. Kobayashi is anxious, clearly wanting to pair up with Mino. However, before he can ask, a boy approaches Mino and asks to be her partner. She immediately agrees, saying it is fine, leaving Kobayashi in shock. Eventually, everyone forms pairs. The class representative questions the teacher on why the pairs specifically need to be mixed. The teacher claims that men and women coming into contact is important on a biological level. Miyabi, paired with Kobayashi, is pissed off, calling the explanation nonsense. She tells Kobayashi they have to do the cactus formation, but notices he is distracted. Miyabi identifies the NPC paired with Mino as Moriyama, a classmate. Kobayashi immediately calls out to NPC Yama, offering to trade Miyabi for Mino. Miyabi shouts at him while Moriyama refuses the trade, declaring he earned this privilege on his own. Kobayashi insists the trade is going down and challenges Moriyama. Nakajima watches from a distance, thinking both guys are brain dead. Kobayashi and Moriyama decide to compete to see who is appropriate for Mino, ending up beating each other up while Miyabi questions their seriousness. Suddenly, Mino approaches Kobayashi, asking for a moment. She proceeds to practice the lift by lifting him up into the air herself. Kobayashi hangs there, thinking that usually the guy lifts the girl, but decides that this is simply Mino's style and finds himself concerningly happy about it. The night before sports day, Kobayashi works tirelessly at home, balancing on one foot to calculate the perfect angle for the gymnastics event. Suddenly, the window opens, and Chiyoko appears, asking what the hell he is doing. Kobayashi freaks out, asking why she is there all of a sudden. Chiyoko climbs into the room, explaining that she is on her way home from cram school and dealing with pre-exam stress. She flops onto his bed, adding that she had a fight with her mother and wants to stay over, but Kobayashi immediately tells her to go back. Curious, Chiyoko asks what he was doing earlier. Kobayashi explains that it is a mental rehearsal for the coordinated group gymnastics with Mino. Chiyoko calls him disgusting, but smiles and offers to play Mino's role for practice. He realizes this is a good opportunity and agrees. They attempt the cactus position repeatedly, falling over constantly. 4 hours later, covered in bandages and scratches, they finally perfect the form, with Kobayashi successfully holding Chiyoko at a steady 45-degree angle. The next day at school, Miyabi gives Mino a massage while Kobayashi psyches himself up, muttering that he just needs to do what he practiced. Suddenly, the class representative arrives with bad news. The mixed-gender gymnastics have been suspended due to complaints from the Parent-Teacher Association. Kobayashi is crushed, feeling his soul leave his body. However, Mino approaches him and cheerfully suggests they try their best in the other events. Kobayashi is instantly re-energized, shouting his agreement. Watching the scene, the NPC boy clenches his teeth in frustration, while Miyabi simply mutters that Kobayashi is a simple boy. Finally, the sports day begins. The announcer calls for program number 7, the first-year girls scavenger hunt. The group of boys immediately shouts in protest, demanding to know why the coordinated group gymnastics were suspended if this event is allowed. The teacher explains that the PTA is relentlessly complaining, forcing the change. Kobayashi calls the complainers a noisy bunch, but the NPC student questions his sudden complacency. Kobayashi laughs, claiming it is because he is the man Mino has chosen, even though she simply asked him to do his best. The NPC scowled at his arrogance, but the teacher reassured the boys they'd still have plenty of chances. Kobayashi was confused, until the girls revealed their scavenger hunt chits, descriptions. The girls panic as the teacher explains the rule. For mixed-gender activities, they had to run holding hands with their chosen partner or face disqualification. Kobayashi assumes Mino would pick him again, but the NPC reminds him that life isn't that simple. Moments later, both Mino and Miyabi approach with their chits. Miyabi pairs with Moriyama, leaving Mino to take Kobayashi. He gloated at Moriyama, but his victory vanished when he read Mino's chit, the guy who sits next to you. Holding hands, they start the race and reach the net crawl obstacle. Kobayashi lifts the net for Mino, but she freezes. Her horns are caught in the mesh. He tries to clear a path, but it doesn't work. When he reaches out to untangle her, she panics, jerking her head so hard that the rope snaps. She sprints away, cheeks red from embarrassment and frustration, leaving a bewildered Kobayashi staring after her. Later, he looks visibly depressed until Mino approaches him to apologize for getting startled earlier. Kobayashi quickly apologizes as well, blaming himself. Miyabi and Nakajima immediately accuse him, ignoring his desperate denials. The announcer calls for the next event, the first-year boys' cavalry battle. Kobayashi faces off against Moriyama, boasting that he is a pro at this game. However, his confidence vanishes the moment he spots Mino dressed as a cheerleader on the sidelines. Completely captivated by her appearance, Kobayashi loses focus and is instantly defeated by Moriyama. The next day at school, Mino sits quietly while Kobayashi watches her. Suddenly, she flinches and bolts from her seat. He is confused until he hears other students shouting about a bug. Realizing that Mino is terrified of insects to the point of shivering, Kobayashi rolls up his notebook, determined to kill it. However, seeing the creature crawling on the floor freaks him out as well. Kobayashi pleads with Nakajima to handle it, explaining that Mino is bad with insects, but Nakajima indifferently refuses. Just then, Mino grabs Kobayashi's hand in fear before quickly letting go and apologizing. Kobayashi freezes, his hand trembling not from fear, but because he is completely flustered by her touch. Miyabi steps in, declaring that she will save Mino. In response, Mino hugs Miyabi so tightly that she faints on the spot. Nakajima dryly notes that Mino is the dangerous one, not the insect. Realizing he has to do it, he asks the group for help. Moriyama steps forward with a broom, offering to lend a hand just for today. Suddenly, the insect lands directly on Mino's shirt. Both boys freeze, panicking because they cannot strike it without alerting or hurting her. Kobayashi realizes it is game over, but then the insect flies up and lands on Moriyama's head. Seizing the chance, Kobayashi thanks Moriyama and slams his notebook down on his classmate's head with full force. Unnoticed by the group, the insect survives and flies to the window. Kobayashi triumphantly shouts that he did it, and Mino thanks him profusely, making him beam with happiness. However, the victory is an illusion. The insect is actually right on Kobayashi's back, and he gets smacked. After class, Mino plays cards with Miyabi. She smirks as she pulls a card, but upon realizing it is the Joker, she quickly puts it back into Mino's hand, mentally cursing. Moriyama tries to comment on the situation, but Kobayashi cuts him off, noting that this sight is super rare. Mino is being incredibly emotionally expressive, though Moriyama wonders why she looks so depressed. Kobayashi suggests they just watch from a distance. Mino has only 2 cards remaining. Whenever Miyabi touches the safe card, Mino beams with pure joy, but the moment Miyabi hovers over the Joker, Mino's face fills with despair. She switches back and forth between these expressions instantly. Kobayashi thinks Miyabi is being way too sadistic by prolonging the choice. In the end, she pulls the king and wins the game of Old Maid. Moriyama remarks on how amazing it is that they get so into such a simple game. The next day, Mino arrives at school looking stunning, causing the boys to freak out over how cute she looks. Her hair is incredibly smooth and now a different color. The girls whisper that the new look totally suits her. Kobayashi asks Moriyama for his verdict. He thinks for a moment, admitting that while he naturally prefers black hair by a long shot, the change has made Mino emotionally expressive all the time. He concludes it is difficult to decide which is superior. Kobayashi fully agrees, and both boys watch Mino with happy smiles. The next day at Kobayashi's house, chaos erupts. His sister is shouting at him, demanding he buy her a replacement. Their mother enters, asking what is wrong. The sister complains that he ate her burger like it was nothing. The mother scolds him, telling him he needs to go buy one for her. The sister yells after him that it was a bacon and egg burger. Kobayashi tells her to shut up and heads out. At the fast food restaurant, the receptionist asks to take his order. Kobayashi pauses to think, then simply orders a cheeseburger. He leaves the shop with the food, thinking how nice it would be to run into Mino. As if by magic, Mino and Miyabi are standing right in front of him. Kobayashi freaks out, asking what is going on. Miyabi explains they are visiting a farmer's market, and Mino asks if he would like to join them. Kobayashi immediately agrees. At the market, the girls look at vegetables while Kobayashi only looks at Mino. The shopkeeper shouts that the lettuce was freshly harvested this morning. Mino holds up a head of lettuce, and Kobayashi comments that it looks really delicious. She asks if he wants to eat it. Kobayashi gets nervous, but Mino buys it for 88 yen. She then rips the entire head of lettuce in half with her bare hands and starts eating it immediately. Miyabi notes that Mino always eats with evident relish. Mino extends the other half toward Kobayashi. He takes it, wondering if he should bring it home, but the girls stare at him expectantly. Miyabi tells him to hurry up and eat. Kobayashi is confused, wondering if he can really eat it without dressing. He takes a bite, and the flavor explodes. It feels refreshing, like surfing on water in the middle of summer. He exclaims that the lettuce is really delicious. Miyabi agrees, munching on some as well. Kobayashi suggests they put it in his burger to eat. Later at home, his sister sees the lettuce on the table and asks why it is there. Kobayashi takes a bite of the lettuce again, but this time, he thinks to himself that it is not delicious at all. Without Mino, the magic is gone. At school, Mino looks visibly distressed. Miyabi asks if she is okay, but Mino simply holds her head and nods slightly, not saying much. Miyabi assumes she is fine, though Kobayashi notices that something is clearly wrong. During PE class, Mino stands on the sidelines, still holding her head, looking pale. Kobayashi stares at her, wondering what is wrong, but he is so focused on her that he fails to see the baseball flying toward him. The ball smacks him right in the mouth. Later, he is at the water fountain with a tissue plug in his bleeding nose when Mino calls out to him. She apologizes but says she has a favor to ask. Stepping closer, she reveals that a key is stuck, wrapped tightly around her horn. She explains that she tried to remove it herself but couldn't. Kobayashi agrees to help, wondering how on earth it got stuck there in the first place. He reaches out to remove the key, but the moment he touches her horn, Mino lets out a loud shout. Kobayashi freaks out and apologizes. Mino says the fault is hers. She takes a deep breath to compose herself and tells him to proceed. Determined to meet Mino's expectations, Kobayashi clenches his fist. He feels the spiritual presence of his friends rooting for him from behind. Just as he extends his hand to grab the key, Miyabi appears out of nowhere and casually snatches it off. Mino thanks her, leaving Kobayashi standing there with his hand frozen mid-air. Moriyama walks by and questions what Kobayashi is doing and what his plan even is. He freezes on the spot, overwhelmed by embarrassment. Later, the group is having lunch together. Kobayashi watches Mino eat broccoli, noting how much she loves it. Though he is still concerned about her recent behavior, Suddenly, he realizes his lunchbox has vanished from his hands. He shouts confused, only to find Chiyoko holding it. Wanting to learn more about Mino-san, she steps a little too close into her personal space. Mino turns and shoots her a menacing glare, so intense that Chiyoko immediately recoils in fear. Panicking and trying to diffuse the tension, she hurriedly pulls out her phone and gestures for Mino to add her on the Line app. After returning home, Mino reaches into her pocket, but cannot find her key. She searches her bag thoroughly, but it is nowhere to be found. Desperate to get inside, she tries the window, but it is locked. She attempts the back door, but it is also secured. Defeated, she calls Miyabi to report the lost key. Miyabi, currently at her part-time job, is shocked, realizing Mino will be locked out until evening. Miyabi tells her to go wait in front of the convenience store and let her figure something out. However, the savior turns out to be Kobayashi, who comes speeding up on his bicycle. He tells Mino that he searched the entire route from the school to her place but couldn't find the key, apologizing for his failure. Mino shows him her phone, explaining that she managed to contact her family, so someone will be home soon. Kobayashi is relieved to hear it. Just then, Mino's stomach growls so loudly that it drowns out the conversation. She blushes in embarrassment, but he quickly suggests they eat something, offering to pay. Although Mino hesitates, he insists. Since he doesn't have much money, they settle for cup noodles. As the hot water is poured into the cups, she watches with a look of pure happiness. She thanks Kobayashi, telling him she is happy regardless of the situation. He bashfully replies that it is nothing. Sitting outside the convenience store, they begin to eat. Mino takes the first bite and finds it so delicious that she can't stop eating. Kobayashi joins in, enjoying the meal alongside her. Meanwhile, Miyabi arrives at the scene. Seeing them eating together, she mutters that Mino looks like she is doing just fine. Miyabi looks down at her hand. She had actually found the key on the roadside earlier. Seeing how happy Kobayashi and Mino are, Miyabi pauses, unsure if she should interrupt the moment. It is a freezing winter day. Miyabi is bundled up in layers, but still shivering on her way to school. She looks over at Mino in disbelief, remarking that she cannot believe Mino is walking outside with bare legs in this weather. Just then, Kobayashi approaches, cheerfully saying good morning. He too is not wearing a sweater, unlike his friends, who are fully covered in coats. Miyabi remarks that she heard stupid people don't catch colds, and it looks like that is totally true. Kobayashi entirely ignores the insult. Later in class, the teacher announces that winter vacation starts tomorrow and warns everyone not to eat too much mochi. The students receive their report cards. When Kobayashi and Miyabi open theirs, both are visibly shocked by the results. On the way home, Kobayashi tells Nakajima that he won't be sad about not seeing Mino during the break. Nakajima and Kikuchi turn around, confused. Kobayashi reveals his master plan. He is getting hyped up to send Mino a New Year's card. Nakajima dryly asks if he even bothered to ask for her address properly. Kobayashi freezes, realizes he hadn't, and crumbles in embarrassment. On New Year's Eve, having finally obtained the address, Kobayashi sneaks up to Mino's house to slide the card into the mailbox. Suddenly, Mino's younger brother appears behind him. Kobayashi panics, explaining it is just a New Year's card for the boy's big sister. The brother refuses to let him leave it, dragging Kobayashi inside and insisting he hand it to her face to face. He ends up inside Mino's house, completely freaking out. The brother hands the card to Mino. Mino's mother appears, teasingly asking if this visitor is a friend or a boyfriend. Mino calmly replies, "A friend." The mother smiles and offers to make toshikoshi soba noodles since it is New Year's Eve. The brother continues to tease, insisting Kobayashi is her boyfriend now. He politely thanks the mother, trying to maintain his composure. As they eat the soba, Mino scribbles something on a piece of paper. When she finishes, she hands it to Kobayashi. It is a handmade New Year's card. Kobayashi is touched by the drawing. Mino then mentions that she is going with Miyabi for the first shrine visit of the year tonight and asks if he wants to come along. He immediately agrees, realizing with joy that this means he gets to spend time at Mino's house until tonight. Just then, the younger brother pulls out a board game and shouts to play the game of life. Mino immediately agrees, while Kobayashi looks significantly less enthusiastic about the interruption. During the New Year's first shrine visit, the crowd is overwhelming. Amid the sea of people, Chiyoko, Miyabi, Nakajima, and Kikuchi spot Kobayashi standing with Mino. Chiyoko immediately demands to know why Mino and Bean-senpai are together. Kobayashi smugly claims that he and Mino already had a deep talk about life, proudly implying how close they are. Chiyoko shoves herself between them, boldly declaring that she is the one who will marry Mino. Miyabi remarks that the two did seem to get closer after exchanging line IDs. Kobayashi snaps back that it is ridiculous and tries to pull Chiyoko away, while Miyabi sighs and tells everyone to keep moving. Noticing Kobayashi's thin outfit, the girls ask whether he is cold or just foolish. Miyabi answers for him, confirming that he is definitely foolish, prompting Kobayashi to grumble for them to shut up. Chiyoko then spots an Amazaki stall, and the group gathers around the fire to enjoy the warm, sweet drink. She and Miyabi comment on how nice the heat feels. Off to the side, Kobayashi suddenly declares the atmosphere intense and announces that it is time for a match. When Chiyoko questions him, he excitedly reveals that he means the fortune slips. Kobayashi opens his and receives misfortune. Chiyoko draws a middle blessing, and Miyabi gets a full blessing. They tease Kobayashi for being the only one with bad luck, calling him small fry. Mortified, he rushes to the designated area to tie the slip away, convinced his year is already doomed. Mino then appears beside him, holding the same result. She smiles and encourages him to do their best this year as she ties her slip next to his. Encouraged, Kobayashi decides to challenge fate again for the sake of their happiness and buys another fortune, only to receive an even worse one. Mino tries again as well and is rewarded with a great blessing. And so, Kobayashi's year begins with terrible luck. School has started again, and on a hot summer day, the girls visit a public bathhouse. This trip came about because the girls had discussed visiting a public bath earlier on the bus, and Kobayashi had overheard the entire conversation. Consequently, Kobayashi is now in the men's section of the same bathhouse. He stares at the dividing wall. Hearing the commotion, Kobayashi gets excited. He sprints to Nakajima, outlining a plan. He wants to make it seem like he met Mino coincidentally in the lobby and treat her to some post-bath milk. He practices his line, but his friends sarcastically tell him it is spot on. When the girls finally emerge from behind the curtain, Kobayashi hesitates. Impatient, Nakajima kicks him, shouting, "Let's do it!" Kobayashi goes flying and crashes onto the floor in front of the girls, shouting at Nakajima. Mino notices him and casually comments on the coincidence of running into each other. Kobayashi scrambles to his feet, trying to offer her the drink, but his mind goes blank. All he manages is a confused, broken attempt to mention Mino and milk. Chiyoko reacts with open disgust, criticizing him for acting desperate and calling the behavior pathetic. Kobayashi's romantic plan collapses on the spot. The scene shifts to Kobayashi's alarm blaring non-stop as his mother yells from downstairs, reminding him that the new school term starts today. Realizing he has overslept, he jolts awake and bolts out of the house in a panic. Class is already underway when he bursts through the door, loudly asking Nakajima where his seat is. After stumbling his way to the desk beside Mino, he earns a sharp smack on the head from the teacher for disrupting the lesson. He leans over and quietly greets Mino, but the moment he opens his bag, he freezes. In his rush, he brought an empty one. The teacher notices and whacks him with a book again, but the mistake unexpectedly works in his favor. With no materials, he is told to push his desk next to Mino's so they can share a textbook. Kobayashi is secretly happy. Sitting shoulder to shoulder, Kobayashi Suda reflects that even as a second-year student, he still cannot shake his interest in one thing. His gaze shifts to the girl beside him, Mino, and her horns.
Here I am, know it's been a while. I was in denial about my love. Here I stand, I know I walked away.